decade at working for Unilever, I decided to start writing and then sending stuff to people. And I said, this is good. And then one day, armed with a bottle of scotch, one of the panelists here, who may or may not be the moderator of this conversation, I went to his house with a bottle of scotch and I said to him, I've got stuff here, I've printed it out. What do you think? And he's asking me this question, but he knows that he's the one that said, this people will want to read. So that's my answer. You told me that I could write.
Thank you. Thank you. A bit of hope is there. Yeah. Somebody yesterday, I think it was Mbali, who was here on this panel, spoke about writing being an act of activism. And the panel that they were part of was writing and rioting. And we read stories for different reasons, and we write stories for different reasons. Sometimes for self-gratification, but sometimes as a selfless act of activism, contributing before euphorism, Lena, Imnandi. So, Zooks, you've been writing a lot, both in terms of non-fiction and fiction, and your novels in particular have very, very powerful characters, protagonists who happen to be women. Was that deliberate on your part? And if so, why do you think people need to read about women? This is a man's world.
But it would be nothing without a woman. But anyway, firstly, it's a really great thing to do because majority of book buyers are women anyway. So there, to start. And then, secondly, I have actually written about fabulous, fantastic men from a male perspective, but the thing about it is, you've written about powerful men, and you've said all there is to say. I can't outdo you. That's the reason why I write about powerful women. That's all.
No. That's what checking out. My characters are women. My strong characters are women. This lady in British.
Okay,
yeah, come on, please.
But I mean, you also have that taxi guy in British who's even equally powerful.
Okay. Angela, 13th candle.
30th.
30th candle. These ladies from these bonds which sustain them through hardships, through challenges. I don't like the word patriarchy because it actually self-defeats the storytelling that we are trying to pursue. In terms of your storytelling, what do you struggle with most as a storyteller? And I'm bringing this question in light of the jump that you made from your first novel, Red Ink, which was a meta story, to the story that you are telling these days. What was the major challenge as a writer?
Challenge as a writer. I think actually the most challenging book to write for me is the one that I'm working on. And the reason is because it's actually I'm working on 2 manuscripts at the moment. And I realized the comfort that comes with writing in third person and how much I've taken it for granted because all of my books are written in third person. Well, all of my current books that have been published are in. What's that? So anyway, so the book that I'm writing now is it's also crime fiction, and it's based on it's written from the perspective from first person, the perspective of a crooked cop, a corrupt cop, and what I've come to appreciate is what that kind of all-seeing, all-present perspective that the third person account gives you. And I think it is important as a writer to constantly challenge yourself. So, yeah, it's by far the most challenging because I'm kind of stuck in this body of a male, number one. I have written from a male perspective before, but from that detached kind of sense. So yeah, that has been the most challenging. But I mean, it's good to always push your boundaries. The other manuscript that I'm working on is actually. It's futuristic. It's kind of a science fiction, but I don't want to call it science fiction because I know a lot of people are kind of put off by the genre because they think it's so fantastical. But it's the story of what Africa will look like in 2056, and that's very exciting for me. And I think we don't talk a lot about science and technology and mathematics and innovation and where we will be as a continent and as a people in terms of that evolution. So it's quite intriguing for me, and I'm fascinated with first of all that entire field and also the amount of research that I'm going to need to do to tell us how genetic engineering will shape the kind of people that we will be in the next, I don't know, what? Where's my maths? Are you a mathematician? 40 years. It's not far enough. So yeah, so I just think for me it's always interesting to just delve into different spaces, and I think, I mean, and this is a completely personal thing, that with the kind of smaller reading public that we have in South Africa specifically, for instance, you are able as a writer to experiment with different types of writing. I mean, she writes fiction, non-fiction. I don't like the idea of being cornered into one specific genre, being presented as this kind of crime fiction writer only. Yeah, so I'm quite excited. It's challenging, but it's an exciting challenge, yeah.
Yes, I was sitting outside yesterday with a young gentleman from Northwest who reads a lot of books, and he said he doesn't read fiction at all. So I said, why not? No, I want my truths to be laid there on the table, straight, the facts.
Does he only do the missionary position?
Which reminded me of an article that was published in The Guardian about 4 or 5 years ago by the British novelist Ian McEwan. He said, as an experiment, took my old editions of my books. I went to the local park and I was giving them out. And every time he meets a guy, and every lady he bumped into would accept. It's a novel, yeah. So he did this as a dipstick research, and then it became something very big for him, and he did it more scientifically. And he published a study to show that were it not for women buyers of books or readers of novels, the novel form, the fiction form itself would have died a long time ago. I was shocked. But of course, sitting with this young man yesterday, confirmed this thing that I thought was true of America or the UK or whatever, but really, Ndumiso, you're guilty of that. You write non-fiction. Why not novels?
I think, Fred, if you had actually read my books with any level of comprehension, no. The thing about this, about it is this: is that what I do write is something that when we talk to each other we call creative non-fiction. In other words, what you do is you take stories as you see them, and what you do is you put them in a way that allows you to then be able to just state your opinion. And so, being someone who, without being sued, is very important. And so what happens is, for instance, I write a weekly column in the Sunday Times, and people are forever asking me, because when they read my columns, and I mean that means churning out 50 columns a year, and that's a lot.
You took my spot at the Sunday Times.
But I pay you in kind. But do you know what I mean? It's when you write the way that I do, I have always known that I fell into this particular corner of writing creative non-fiction purely because my first book, some of my best friends are white, and that's a plug, by the way, for you to won't mind. Is when people read it, people who enjoy fiction enjoyed it just as much as people who are just interested in non-fiction. And I think that, part of the reason I have started so many novels, and I am guilty of this whole trap of I want to write fiction, and I deep down inside I know that I haven't, and at least right now I am over the 95% mark through my very first fictional novel, because I truly understand that I think fiction does allow you to be even more creative than the space that I have been in and where I have been in. And sometimes we tell lies because we are in a kind of the space that I have been in terms of the books that I have written has purely been commercial, because I have a wife and 3 children that I know of. So you kind of get stuck in that space purely because that's your money maker, right? But to answer your question, mea culpa, but I am fixing it with my first novel.
No, I have to agree with you on many things about non-fiction versus fiction writing. There's no money in fiction, by the way. Non-fiction sells more than fiction, but that's by the way. So, but we've created this. Thando has created this forum for us fiction writers to sell our books here. So we are asking new people to buy them, so that we can be as rich as Ndumiso Nobuhle, who writes non-fiction. But yeah, Zugiswa. Okay, before we get to Zugiswa, I'm going to ask of Zugiswa this question, and then we're going to open it to the floor, and then we in terms of time, I'm not sure how we're doing, but I'll be guided by the people there. After we've taken some questions and comments, I'll throw it back to the panelists. So, Zugiswa, I'm going to ask a very, very, very boring question. Where are we going as writers in South Africa? Do we matter? People have got Facebook, they've got Twitter, they've got Snapchat, they've got so many things which are immediate, where they can vent their spleen immediately. Why should they wait for a book?
The book is dead. Long live the book. I don't know how many times literature has been killed in history. It always gets killed, but then it never dies. So there are people who still value that time where they spend by themselves in their own little world. And one of the more gratifying things, obviously, is when people send you a message and they say to you, but why did you do this? Why did you do this to this character? And it's like, it has touched a certain core part of them. And that is still, books are stories, If you say the book is dead, you might as well say the movie is dead. You might as well say all other forms of storytelling are dead, But as South African writers, particularly Tina Abantu, one of the things that I've said, and I've said to you guys quite a lot, and I'm going to repeat it, is that we fail to understand that there is a continent of 53 other countries that understands what it is we're saying and that are hungry for our narrative and stuff. One of my friends from Nigeria came and they got, from my library, they got a copy of Bitches Brew. And they got it based on having read the first sentence. You all know Bitches Brew's first sentence. So they got this book and it took a whole lot for me. I kept saying, okay, I need my books back now, And then everybody's like, so he circulated to a whole bunch of people and they kept saying, how come we haven't heard of Fred Khumalo? We've heard of ABC and, the people that have heard of South African writers are 1652s. They haven't heard of you, of whatever, and yet they loved your work. So my thing is, as we do this, can we also understand, Abantu is a wonderful platform and it's so amazing to be here, but as we do this, can we also understand that we are parts of the greater Africa?
Yeah, thank you. There's this great river called Life, and we... including that. This great river called Life, and we just happen to be a small tributary of that. If we are not careful, we might just peter out and die if we don't engage. So we are very grateful and thankful that a platform exists for us to re-engage. Because we've been to Franschhoek Festival, we've been to many forums where, yes, we get treated as special human beings, but it's only an event. And we don't want to be part of an event, we want to be part of this great river of life. And this forum has created that possibility. And so we must leverage into that, gain traction with, of course, with your permission as people who are our perpetual critics, readers. Without a reader, you're not a writer. You might as well do what Onan did, what he did then. Okay? Without further ado, may I open this to the floor. People ask questions, make observations, comments and critics, because it's a very, very open-ended kind of thing. We are not academics. Nothing wrong with academics. Okay. Okay, yes. The roving mic. I shall recognize a lady first. You raise your hand.
What do you have against me, Uncle Fred? I wanted to ask Uzuki Savannah, well, for the record, I'm a fan, so there might be some bias. But I want to ask you, like, you read everything, and the one thing that I don't like about Uzuki, so I really don't like it, if she recommends a book, I love it. If she says, don't go there, and I say, who do you think you are? I end up regretting having gone there, despite what she advised me. But anyway, I wanna ask you, how do you get it right to read so much? Like I don't know if this question is, it's not silly to me. Like, how do you make reading time? Because she's read the entire continent and the entire other continents. She's read everything and she remembers everything. And then the other question is, your son reads a lot. He's 11 and he reads more than me. How do you get kids to get into reading? Because we can say that but kids are kids, they can like what they like, because reading exposes a person to so much. It's important that a kid can pick up a book without thinking much about it and then just read it just to find out without thinking that I'm reading. Do it as if he's having an oros. So how do you get a kid to love reading like your kid does? Yeah.
Before she answers, let's field more questions. Yes, quickly.
Hello. Okay, I think I'll shout it out because it's not working. Okay, my question's around publication and distribution. I once came across I would say, Facebook rage by Eusebius, where he was raging about exclusive books and said, it's absolutely unacceptable that you go to exclusive books and you encounter, first of all, an African section, which to begin with is not populated with enough books to start with. And when you go to some of the stuff members, when you ask them about certain authors that should be popular, that are popular, they don't know about them. So what are the struggles of publication and distribution as Abantu, or as in your personal experience?
Okay, we will take 2 more questions before we respond.
Okay, well then I'm just gonna get up and shout. Okay, I'm an academic, so I don't know if I'm allowed to speak now. It's a comment for Sis Angela. I am so happy that you are writing the novel. Forgive me that we always need to have boxes, right? So I'm going to use the term speculative fiction just from what it sounded like. I just, when I teach my students, I need to use a term. So I am so happy and so grateful that you just shared with us that you are writing this novel, because I have encountered so many colleagues that say, no, we've got Lauren Bucas and we've got Charlie Human and we've got Sarah Lott and what, and we've got no black South Africans who are writing speculative fiction. You are about to just kill them all and shut them up, and that's awesome. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Okay, one last before we answer.
Take the mic around.
Okay, yes.
No, he was just shouting.
I think it's because they're discriminating against me.
Okay, so there's one concept that I struggle persistently to understand, and I'd like to pose it to any female author and any of the male authors as well. It's putting yourself into another gender, or writing from the perspective of another gender. Is this something that you can do only once you've perhaps spent enough time with males or females to understand how they think? Or do you just imagine that this is how a male would tackle this situation, or this is how a female would tackle this situation?
Thank you. Let's just start with Angela. Do you want to respond to that comment?
What the comment about speculative?
Yes.
Or is that what it's called, speculative fiction?
Well, that's
I think I'm much more comfortable with that than for starters. Look, your mic is on. Thank you. Yeah, I think the point with me writing in a genre that is, possibly not that popular or not that, not that popular or prevalent, is that I write what I'm attracted to. It's not, for me, it's not about I want to break into this, or I want to be a game changer or anything like that. It actually comes, the idea for this novel actually comes from the movement that's happening now. decolonization movement, the fallers, the questioning of the status quo. It's about also reclaiming what has been lost in terms of African knowledge systems and African contribution to the fields of science and technology. So it's quite daunting for me. I'm not actually as pleased and happy and excited. Well, I'm excited, but I'm also terrified. And and I think it's good to be terrified as a writer, because then you respect what you write more. You respect your audiences more, because you put in a lot of effort to make sure that it's believable and it's authentic and it's got its own flavor. Yeah.
Okay, my two cents worth about on that particular question. I do want to argue that Noele Zelanga fits the genre of speculative fiction. Okay. So, and then we move to Zubiso. How do you inculcate the culture of reading into little genre, and how do you do it yourself?
I think a lot of people don't understand that children mirror us in a lot of ways. If your child sees you reading, they're likely to be a reader. If they don't see you doing it. So of course, I mean, Zamai has seen me reading like since a very young age, and since he was born, he's seen me whatever. And when they're like a year old, even they hold a book, maybe the dollhouse. Sorry, it's a private joke about one of Makola's kids. Anyway, so they see you reading a book, and they will likely do the same thing. That's really how you do it, And no, I've got tons of books that I still want to read. I haven't read as much as I should. But the way I also manage... No, you read everything. No, but seriously.
I challenge anyone.
No, but also the reason I'm the type of writer who, the one thing when I'm not working on a novel or non-fiction or children's books, whatever, because I've just finished writing another children's book, which I'm really excited about. Polisa got to read it, so and it's got a character called Sankara and stuff, so I'm very excited about it. Anyway, when I'm not writing, and I write in bursts. I write when I actually have something, when I feel that I actually have something to say. So I'm not that person who does 1,000 words every day, I will only write when I have to, and of course, when I need to, where my columns are concerned, obviously. So what then I do is, the rest of the time, because I am a full-time writer, is I spend reading, because I like reading, and it makes me bankrupt, but I like it.
The long and short of it, I don't think you can be a successful writer if you don't read. Our writing regimes are very different. I write every day, not for publication, just Lionel Messi scores 1,000 goals a year, not because he's competing against one club. He's competing with himself. So every day he practices his skills and all that. That's what I do every day. Whether I'm unsober or whatever, I write. Because I want to exercise the muscle, the writing muscle, whether it's fiction or non-fiction, and a lot of it ends up in the rubbish bin. But sometimes you get inspired to create this character out of nowhere, and the storyline, and sometimes the storyline just hooks you, it takes you, you flow with this river of words and so on and so on. Before we get distracted, Ndumiso, do you want to respond to the question about the distribution and publication, the struggles that you encounter?
Sorry, I also wanted to answer the gender thing. It actually really helps when you drink with them.
So you can write men, like you can do Men of the South because you drink with the guys. Often write in a voice that is not really yours. So you think of that particular drunken uncle that you know of that thinks a particular way, and you put yourself in their shoes. And so when people write, even if I'm a male, I can write, put myself in someone's shoes and write as them. I mean, I think you think of someone like Charles Bosman, who wrote as what was his name? Umskalk. Yeah, he wrote a lot of things, which is why Charles Bosman could get away with writing. Use the word. I mean, I think in his collection, I mean the word kafa is there. It's so easy to let someone be because they are using that word. And I find that a lot of black writers. I've never heard a black writer say, but Charles Bosman must have been a racist. When he was writing, it was satire. I'm pretty sure he must have. But to answer the question about distribution, and I'll tell you a story because I love talking about using stories. I have an American friend who is quite important. It's important to me. It's not important for me to know who he is. And he needed to go. He needed to leave the country.
Where was Ben Williams going?
I have no idea. Not Ben Williams. But he needed to. He was leaving at 8 p.m. last night. He's leaving for LA. I just gave it away. But he was leaving for LA. All he wanted. 10 copies of each of my books. And I've got 3, right? And I called around and I called Exclusive Books, right? Who asked that question, by the way? Just I'm interested, yeah? Yeah, and all the branches of Exclusive Books, between all of them, could not give me two copies each. And I'm not talking about books, I'm talking about books that have sold literally tens of thousands. I mean, they're popular. And the number of times people have said, inbox on Facebook, where do I find your books? There is something fundamentally wrong with the model as we have it. And this is not about, and I think that Exclusive Books has become like a favorite whipping boy of everyone. I'm not saying that Eusebius was wrong, because he was not only 100% correct about how Exclusive Books does business, he was probably 120% right. I mean, there's so much more he could have said about how we've been treated, where you get to this person, it's a bookstore, crying out loud. I almost said the other word. You get there and you say, I am looking for a book by Angela McCall, and they so who's that? I don't understand how it is that you can have it. And that says something about, not so much about Exclusive Books, but about the industry in South Africa and how it has been set up. And the reason that it does not work is that just like apartheid spatial planning, that ring road where instead of easy access to every place, this city was designed in such a way as to keep people inside Soweto so that there are only 2 or 3 exits and entrances into this. So it wasn't designed for people to be able to move around. The publication industry in South Africa, the model is set up all wrong. And I think that we all need to be a bit more creative about how it is. And there are so many ideas about how it is that we can distribute books, but it is completely unfriendly. And I'm saying this, and it doesn't help me because it's extremely hostile, even, where they really, literally, for instance, if you are running a business and in a week 40 people come through your shop and they say, I am looking for Cape Town, London, Joburg, yeah, they come through and they 30, and then as a store manager you say, I'm going to go order 5. You clearly, so I will only keep 5, even though I have had 30 queries for the book. So they clearly are not, it's not set up, it's about just saying, we do have Fred Kumalo, we do have Angela McCall.
That's a long sprinkling. So here's a tragic comedy. Red Ink had just come out, so I think I was in a foreign city like Cape Town or nice now. But anyway, so I went into a bookstore. I think I was with my mom actually. So you know, you're a first-time author, you've just been published, you're so excited and everything. So we go into an exclusive books and we ask for a copy. We ask them if they have a copy of Red Ink. Then they go into their system and they're like, oh yeah, I think we do have a copy. Then the assistant just walks us to the aisle, the small dingy corner, the African writer section, and then we get there, and she says, "Oh, I think we sold out. It looks like we sold out." I'm like, "Yay, we sold out!" And then I ask her, "How many copies did you have?" And she's like, "5." You know that crashing blow. There's my tragicomedy. So that should tell you.
Organizes their own. There's no exclusives. You have to go store to store.
Yes.
But as somebody once said a few years ago, I think part of the problem is the very idea of thinking books should be exclusive.
Yes. It's tragic. I don't want to repeat what they've done already, but this forum that we have now called Abantu is, as a result, it is reacting to those limitations, that those barriers that have been put before writers and readers. The barrier so that we don't know each other. Even now we are trying to communicate our stories, our narratives and all that. We don't know each other. And a person would say, why don't we write about these things? We have written about these things, but they haven't been sold, they haven't been communicated. My first book, Touch My Blood, is out of print. That book came out only 9 years ago. It is out of print. I can't get a copy myself because my copies that I had at home have been stolen. So I don't have a copy. So it is very frustrating that we are dealing with this. But there's hope. We are here trying to encourage people to be more creative about how they tell their stories. People must self-publish. So we need to explore how do we self-publish, and then after self-publishing, how do you distribute? So those are the kind of discussions and conversations we should be having here. That's why we are here, because we're heartful with our publishers as well, because they publish these things which never see light of day actually. Yeah.
Actually, I wanted to just...
Are we doing okay for time? Sorry.
Good afternoon. If maybe I can just put in a 2 cents about the distribution and the publication. There are some models and systems that work really well in other countries, which I think we can look at in South Africa. The one in Canada is when it's a national or local writer, the Canadian government actually pays you every time your book is taken out in the library. You get royalties from being read in the library, and that encourages the development of libraries everywhere. And you know, I was remembering now this morning the conversations I had with Tando. I think at the time when he began to think about Abantu, and the conversations we were having is about how do we get books into townships. We don't really care about exclusives. We want them in townships. We want them read and on every street corner in Soweto. So that might be a very interesting model to look at. How do we get libraries here? And how do we get royalties from books that are read and taken out of libraries? But the question that I had was, and it's for anybody on the panel, was in these times of strife and struggle for black people, what are the pressures of a black writer to write socially relevant or social commentary in anything you do, be it fiction or non-fiction? I mean, have we gotten to a time where we can just imagine other worlds? Or is there significant pressure all the time to talk about fallism and what's happening in Zuma and what's happening in our society now? That was my question.
I'll answer the last question. We are under so immense pressure as writers, because things are happening so fast. Even journalists can't cope with the volume of stories that need to be told. But the kind of outpouring, the flourishing of local stories that I have seen, Tando's book, Unimportance, for example, that is about fallism before fallism, okay? And so people have been writing these stories. So there is that thing, the engagement, it's just that people do not know about them because of the reasons and the realities that we have illustrated so eloquently. So yeah, thank you for your comment about the publishing model in Canada. I didn't know about it, and that gives us hope. We can pressure them as writers, because this forum is for those reasons, so that we have a lobbying kind of possibility. It's government or whoever does these things. But you know what? We can continue forever and ever. I think we need to wrap up now. So therefore, I'll give one last question, and then I'm going to ask the panelists to give their closing comments, because I'm being told we run out of time.
Hi everyone. I have two questions. One question is, the lady behind me asked about how do you make sure your child reads as you read. And it seems like African writers forget about children, that children exist and that they start reading from birth, that we need to write for them. And so my question is, what would it take for you to challenge yourselves to also write for children? I know Zusa has done Refiwe and she's doing the Sankara book, but we cannot rely on 2 books for those of us who have children who read every day, because we read stories and we tell stories every day. The second question is, we're talking about decolonization, and we need to be writing multilingually. I'm not saying that we should only separate books, but we can have bilingual books. It's a question that I'm throwing because some of us who are in bilingual education and multilingual education are educating our children to take pride in African languages and different languages and to communicate with each other. And they need literature in those languages. So what is happening right now, the literature that is there for the children has mainly been written by white people, and then we translate them. So I'm not saying that if you choose to write in English now, I'm not saying change, but what would it take to say, we have written these books, can they be translated into African languages? Because we also need to, as much as we read classics, which we value, we also want contemporary literature written by our favorite writers, in our African languages.
Yes, I'll answer the language question very quickly, very easily. It all boils down to the publishing industry. So I'm throwing back the challenge to people who are here to explore other avenues. I write in Zulu and English, but my publisher has said there is no market for Zulu books, which is, I know it's bullshit, but of course I can't change their mind because they are thinking the old way, the old special apartheid planning. Yeah. So the challenge is here with us as how do we think out of the box, to use the cliche, create more forums where we can publish in our languages. And then the issue of children's books, it's a challenge. It's not easy to write for children, from what I know.
And can I just start out here? Start out by saying that, for the person, it might sound to someone else who's listening to it, that this is a winding session about everything else outside forces. And I think that's also a responsibility that we have. And at this point, I really would hope that people just give Utano Mgolozane a round of applause for contributing. Not just him, and obviously the team, around him, because we've been whining about this stuff for years, and he's gone and done something about it. And I'll tell you something that's interesting. A book that some of you, probably everyone knows here, Hustler's Bible by Gayton Mackenzie, which people might not actually think is a book that is, people who are literary snobs will say, Gaten Mackenzie has sold more books than all of us here sitting on stage collectively, and you could add even 6 more writers, and he would still outsell all of us. Do you know why? Because he was a businessman writing a book. And the thing about it is, if you're going to put everything on the writer, ultimately the job of the writer is to write. And sometimes, and because we are not natural born business people, there are things that we are doing badly. And the owners, as Fred is saying, it's for us to partner with people that can help us with all of these things. And then as to your question around, sorry, what was your, was I really...
The pressure to be socially relevant.
The need to be socially relevant. Again, if I were, for instance, to go and decide that I want to write, for instance, about the Fees Must Fall movement, you would pick up that rubbish and throw it into the bin. Purely because, as a writer, what happens is there is always this pressure on writers to be everything to everyone. I have scanned around the room and I have seen a face of someone that is in a WhatsApp group that I am in. And he can vouch for me that this morning I was being asked, well, why don't you write about this? And I'm like, I am not going to write about everything. I need to write what I know and what is comfortable to me. And so your point is valid, and I know you're not asking us as individuals. It's a valid point, but to be told, this is what now you need to write, this is what... If I did that, I would probably have to write something in the region of 350 books a year, and I can't. Okay?
Coconut. And I was thinking about your question about why don't we write for children. My imagination is far too wicked for me to even think about writing for children. So again, it goes back to Demiso's point that I think maybe there's a certain level of expectation. I don't know if it's from society, from readers, or because of the kind of social-political environment that we have in South Africa, that writers are supposed to be the be-all and end-all of everything. But honestly, we are artists who are just practicing our craft, and it's really all that we are. And I think it is important that people kind of get to grips with that we cannot be all things to all people. Yeah.
And I think I just wanted to go to your point on the libraries thing, which is a very fantastic idea, I think. But unfortunately, we've got over 2,000 libraries in South Africa. Unfortunately, if you go there, you'll be very hard-pressed to find any books of ours that they actually have in those libraries, you know. And it's a battle that we constantly fight. When I was still staying here, my closest library was Rosettenville. I don't know how many times I donated copies to them, and how many times the copies that I donated of my own work, bought by my own money, were actually disappeared from the libraries, you know, that same library, you know. So, yeah, I keep thinking one of the things that should really be done is that, you know, at least, you know, for every book that's written, it should be a necessity for every library in South Africa to buy a copy, you know, or 2 copies for their library. And then thereafter, we can start talking about people buying at African Flavor Books. Please buy from them or anywhere else. The other thing that I wanted to say regarding translations is I absolutely agree with you. And I think that, I don't know, I have been saying that all the major state universities, you know, have a language department. I don't understand why, maybe as part of getting a master's, they shouldn't be asked to like translate a book from whatever, one language to another. If you're in KZN, from isiZulu to English, or from English to isiZulu, you know, it's part of the, what you call it, knowledge, you know, development and stuff, you know. I think that would be a wonderful idea.
Thank you. Once again, thank you for disproving the notion that black people do not read. They don't buy books. You came out here in your numbers since the festival started yesterday. I watched when I was impressed at the kind of intelligent interaction that took place between the judge yesterday and people who were here, and the fact that actually some people came here having read the book already. That gives us hope, and so people must continue disproving this notion that black people do not read or they don't buy books. Without further ado, we are closing this session, and on that note, African Flavor Books have got a beautiful stall out there. You buy books, and writers are here to give you their signatures for free. So please buy these books. Thank you very much, and we will see you later.
So